and it went off a 3-story bridge. So there were 44 on the bus, 14 died.
Wow.
And my brother was one of them, was sitting next to me. So I crashed my vertebra, broke my back in 2 places, T3 and T4, broke my hands. I was knocked out unconscious. Woke up in the hospital, and that experience was obviously very traumatic and difficult. Yeah. And the loss of my brother and the loss of the rugby, I didn't know how to deal with the world.
Welcome to the Silent Epidemic by Omnia Therapy. I'm your host, Hatice Mehmet-Quirk. Today I'm joined by Lee Fernandes, a highly experienced therapist, health coach and recovery specialist who has worked in the fields of mental health and addiction since 2001. Lee brings over 2 decades of international experience supporting individuals across Europe, Africa, the Middle East, North America and Asia in clinical, institutional and community-based settings. With academic foundations in business and psychology and a master's degree in addiction psychology and counselling, Lee has worked across community drug and alcohol services, methadone clinics, HMP Brixton, Brunel University and the Kushner practice in Zurich. Across these roles, he has helped design recovery-based programs grounded in dignity, empowerment, responsibility and long-term sustainability. Alongside his clinical and coaching work, Lee is a contributor to Omnia Neurodiscovery, including the Omnia Discovery Program, a personalised structured online model designed as either an alternative to traditional treatment or a continuation of care after prior support. The program reflects a shift away from one-size-fits-all recovery towards holistic, flexible and discovery-led support. Lee's work today focuses on supporting individuals navigating addiction, mental health challenges, ADHD and neurodivergence through a collaborative, compassionate and action-orientated approach built on 4 core pillars: honesty, compassion, hope and action. Lee, welcome to the show. Let's begin by first exploring what drew you into this work more than 20 years ago.
Thanks, Hatice. Good to be here today.
Thank you.
Well, rehab drew me into this work. In 2001, I realized that I had this drug and alcohol problem, and my mental health was very poor. And there are reasons for that. I'll come back to that as well. And I'd been putting it off for a very long time. And I decided to make the leap, reach out for help, and I decided to go to the treatment center.
Nice.
And that's what brought me in. And before that, I'm from South Africa originally. Mom, dad, and my brother. And I don't know, I was a little bit naughty per se, a little curious with alcohol and whatnot, so from a young age. But it wasn't out of hand per se. And then I was a very good rugby player. I was a very good rugby player my second year of school. I played this prestigious Craven Week in South Africa. It was in Secunda. And from that experience, I thought, you know what, maybe I can be a professional rugby player.
Wow.
So I set my goals and my sights on doing that. So I was training and whatnot before the season. But in January of 1994, me and my brother went down to see my dad in Cape Town. And we were coming back, they call it a Translux bus, but it's a coach in the UK. Yeah. And it went off a 3-story bridge. So there were 44 on the bus, 14 died.
Wow.
And my brother was one of them, was sitting next to me. So I crashed my vertebra, broke my back in 2 places, T3 and T4, broke my hands. I was knocked out unconscious. And, woke up in the hospital. And that experience was obviously very traumatic and difficult. Yeah. And the loss of my brother and the loss of the rugby, I didn't know how to deal with the world. So my last year of school was supposed to be probably the best, but it was probably the worst. So alcohol and drugs became a solution of some sort. To numb out pain and try to escape my world. And then I was, I didn't realize it was a problem. And then what happened was that I went to treatment center in 97 as an outpatient program.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which was good. But I probably needed a bit more. And, I just didn't want to understand or realize whatever it is, except that maybe you have a problem.
You wasn't ready, right?
No, I wasn't ready. And I was very, I suppose, arrogant, entitled, and probably a proud young man. But then, some stuff happened, and then I did something out of the ordinary. I reached out for help. So I ended up in a treatment center in 2001. And that was the beginning of something that really has shaped my life and allowed me to, help myself, but also, support other people as well, which is what I do, which I really appreciate.
So it sounds like what was a very difficult, traumatic experience was like the catalyst for you using the substances to block out, numb out, escape the pain and difficulty that you're experiencing. But the shift in your life, the change of direction, from looking at rugby being a career,
yes,
that being taken away from you, but also the loss of your brother as well. And then leading into an outpatient, not being ready at that time, then having the inpatient treatment is where the shift came for you.
Yes, yeah. I think, if you bang your head hard enough against something, it's going to hurt. So you can either keep it banging your head or you can stop. So for me, that was it. And I think from 97 till 2001, somewhere around there, I'd banged my head so many times, and I tried to do it my own way, that I realized that this is not working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like 25 at the time, and I was like, well, you know what? This is not for me. And then when I made that decision to actually go into treatment, I was like, oh, yeah, I don't have to do that. I was around peers, around other people. It was very therapeutic.
Yeah.
It was very encouraging. It was very connecting.
Nice. It sounds to me like what you were describing there was that feeling of that sick and tired of being sick and tired before getting in there, and then you get there and you realize, actually, I'm not alone. I've got that community. I've got that connection. People get me. People understand me. And then that realization that actually there's a different way.
Yes. Yeah. I think I felt, I was very alone, I just thought, I was a young boy. I was like 16, 17 at the time when the accident happened. And I just thought like, well, I don't need anyone's help. And I didn't think anything was wrong. I just thought, well, this is the way it is. This is life. But obviously through the accident, I was very angry. I was very depressed. I was very resentful. I was not a happy camper.
And quite rightly so, with all of that to navigate, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
Okay. So then you had your treatment. And then, as you said, that treatment and that experience opened up the opportunity for you to expand into a career.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So when I was in treatment center, and then I actually was studying for a business degree, a Bachelor of Commerce. So because I was being part of the group, they very kindly said, look, you're doing really well. I needed to do one exam. So while I was in treatment, I had to study for the final exam, the Strategic Management, Business Management 3. So I studied, and I was in groups and doing everything, the whole shebang. And I'd go down, I had some private time just to go, and I had to study. So I did that. And when I was in treatment, I was like, you know what, maybe I don't really want to do business. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great and it's fantastic, whatever the case may be. And I thought, when I was a youngster, before the rugby, I thought, I quite like people. And I always thought about Indiana Jones. I always thought archaeologist. That's what I would do, archaeologist. And what I realized is that, I do like people. I like cultures. I like finding out things. I'm quite a curious person. And I thought when I was in there, I was like, I'm sure it's possible to change your life, because that's what I'm going to do. And if I can use some of that experience to support someone else, whatever, make a contribution, that's what I'm going to do, So when I left treatment and I started lecturing at some university. So that was when, so I went to some mutual aid groups, because I always, my opinion and experience, and also working with thousands of other people, is that we can't do it by ourselves, whatever that is. Yeah. So you need to go to where some people can help you. So I did that. I went to another recovery group once a week. I was doing that religiously. And I started helping students at the university. So I would, signpost them, see what's going on. And from there, I managed to, a couple of years later, go back to the treatment center, the first one I went to, and I started running groups there.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a men's group on different psychoeducational topics. And I was like, well, maybe I can do something with this,
Just a quick break from today's episode. If you've ever tried to get therapy, you know how frustrating it can be. You're finally ready to talk to someone, but you've been stuck on a waiting list for months. That's not how mental health support should work. Omnia Therapy makes getting help simple. You can book a session with a fully qualified professional in just 24 hours. No waiting, no contracts, just real support when you need it. And at £40 per session is actually affordable. If you're struggling, don't wait. Tap the link in the show notes or head to omniahealthgroup.com to book your session today. Okay. So it really does seem like you sort of went on the journey that you'd started on.
Yes.
It took a different direction because you sort of started lecturing, but through the lecturing gave you the opportunity to connect with students and see where they were struggling.
Yeah.
Through that led, supporting people and then creating your own psychoeducational groups for men at the first treatment centre that you went to.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, as we know, and I said earlier in the introduction, you run and help, operate the Omnia Neuro Discovery groups.
Yes, I do.
It obviously seems that groups is a passion of yours.
Yes.
What would you say from a client perspective, but also from a professional perspective? What are the different benefits? So for the client, but what do you see as a professional? Okay,
so as a client, I was a client. I was a client. So when I was in treatment, so I knew I had an addiction. I knew that, and I knew my mental health was very bad. I was chronically depressed. So when I went in, I was still a little bit like, don't tell me what to do. You know what I mean? I still was a little bit willful. And so for the first 10 days when I was in treatment, I didn't really participate. I wouldn't talk in groups. I was very guarded. And I just would say no, and that's it. So then I had a one-to-one with the psychologist I was seeing. His name's Gus, lovely man. And we would just talk about feelings. And he said, like, if you keep on doing what you're doing, you will be back here. Or, you might die out there because there's a lot of bad things that happen to people. And I was like, don't tell me what to do. And we had a really big argument. And I went back to my room and I burst out crying. I never did that, So then I was like, okay, so I'm in the treatment center and I either do something properly or I go back, and I don't want to go back because I knew that didn't work. So what I did was I started to participate in the groups. So we had a group therapy. How are you doing? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then they said, no, really, how are you doing, Lee? And then they were like trying to, see what's going on. And I wouldn't budge. And then I had the thought again, maybe I need to do something different. So in addiction per se, they speak about accepting that you're powerless over a substance per se. If you don't have one, it doesn't create that thing. And I thought, well, maybe I can accept some of my feelings. And I didn't want to do that. So I did. And what happened was that I just burst out crying. I was in such pain. And I remember B was the other psychologist. There were two facilitators. And she put a hand on my back and she said, why are you crying? I was like, I don't know. I was in absolute pieces. I really was. And she said, that's okay. You just be where you are. You know what I mean? And when I broke down per se, and I don't think it's a breakdown, it's more like a breakthrough. Yeah. Yeah. Because if I keep on holding all that pain, trauma inside my body, it doesn't work. And then what I was doing, I was using a substance, to try and numb it out, and that doesn't work either, And from me doing that, some of the others opened up as well, and they said, oh, this has happened to them, and some other people became a bit emotional. So and I felt like I belonged. I really did. I was like, oh, so I'm not the only person out there that feels like this, And then I was there for a month. And from those experiences, it was the first time that I really let other people into my world. And they didn't judge me. They didn't say, you shouldn't be doing this, don't do that, you're bad, nothing like that. They were like, okay, this has happened, and how can you move forward? And then obviously from the experience, it was very powerful for me, and there's something about shared experience and shared identity, and even if someone has a mental health condition, someone's going through a divorce, someone has lost their job, someone has addiction, it doesn't really matter actually, okay? But there's something about a shared experience when it comes to something that's been difficult that we can identify as human beings, and that's our humanity. So that was as a client. And then the same thing happens when we do groups as well at the moment. You'll see an individual be on the group, and they're like, I've had this experience with my mom, my dad, my wife. It doesn't really matter, whatever it is. And they think that they're the only person that this is occurring to, or they have some grief, whatever it is. And someone else will give some feedback about their experience. And then what happens is you realize that you're not alone. We're part of this thing called the human race. And we all have challenges, and together we can move through them, and get some narrative around it, let it make sense. And maybe if you want to, you maybe make a contribution to someone else.
I always find that when we talk about groups, there's a bit of a resistance from people, right? If you've been through it, if you've experienced it, you kind of can see the benefits. You know that, someone's going to get you. You're going to get that identity. No one's judging. You're getting that shared connection, that bond. Someone might even say something to you that you think, wow, I never thought of it that way. And the penny drops from a different perspective. Even when you're facilitating a group, you can have that experience from your client. We're all learning all the time, aren't we?
Yeah.
But for someone that's never had that experience, and it's very common, people sort of like, no, it's not for me. I don't want to do that. What would I say to a group of strangers? How can a group of strangers support me?
Yeah.
What would your answer be to those questions?
Well, you might think you're different and special, and I'm not saying you're not. I'm not saying not. However, there's something about human connection, that helps people bond and connect, and also helps with feel-good hormones in the body, the dopamine, the serotonin, all those things. And you'll find that people with more connection, okay, even if you're an introvert, so sometimes you get an introvert, and they're like, I can't, and that's fine, but they still have people they talk to and they connect with. So we all need it for good mental health, because we co-regulate. That's what it's about. We have to co-regulate. So if you feel that it's scary, well, it is scary. It is scary. And why don't you try and see what that's like? Because from my personal experience, and also from facilitating groups, you can see individuals are there, and they're like, "This is not for me." But there's something magical. We've had some clients who have been unfortunately suicidal, for instance. And there's something about someone, much older, speaking about the way they felt, they didn't do anything about it, but the way they felt, and being vulnerable, not an easy thing to do. And then they'll sit there, and someone who's much younger, okay, will say a similar thing, and they're like, what? Do you know what I mean? And someone will say a similar thing, whatever that is. And that's the power of vulnerability and connection, because the thing is as well, it's about being honest. When I was in treatment, this guy, Gus, psychologist, so I was there for 4 weeks, and then he said, then I wanted to stay. He's like, why do you want to stay? I said, I don't want to go home. I said, I love my mom, and all that stuff. I just I said, I'm scared, man. I said, I'm scared. He said, I want to stay here. It's nice, and I'm cocooned up, and he was like, for that reason you shouldn't stay. He said, because whatever goes on, you can deal with it. You need some support, but you can deal with it. And he said, one thing I'm going to say to you before you leave is when you want to get high in life. I was like, yes, I want to get high in life, because obviously I can't use a substance, And he said something that I didn't expect. He said, be honest. was like, what do you mean? He said, you're going to find out. And there's something magical about people being vulnerable, you know, and being honest about, like, they don't know the answers. Maybe they made a mistake. They did this, they did, whatever it is, you know, in a very loving, compassionate, you know, non-judgmental, you know, way, that they're like, yeah, you're okay. The way you are. You don't have to be fixed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can do something different, though.
And I think when anyone experiences any mental health challenge or difficulty or just life experience that's knocked them, when you fear that vulnerability, because if you are completely vulnerable, then your guard comes down, and that's your protection, and that's almost like we convince ourselves that that's what's keeping us together, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And to let that down, to let that go, well, actually forget a group connection. When you're so guarded, you've forgotten how to connect with anyone.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah. So I can understand the difficulty that people think, oh, how am I going to connect with strangers when I'm not even connecting with people that I love and I'm meant to be connecting with? But it's almost like that scenario with the strangers helps them learn to do that vulnerable thing again in that safe environment where they can then go back to their loved ones and do it with them for real this time without the difficulty that they've been experiencing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that the issue with the way, this is just my experience, I've worked with thousands of people, lots of people, is that we have a lack of connection. You know, we all have a phone, you know, and people love to scroll, so we have that, but just the way the world is, unfortunately, we don't connect enough. You know, if you live in a big city like London, you know, it can be a little bit disconcerting for people. I do think you need to make an effort, though. You know, I don't buy into the fact that, oh, London's no, this is the way the city is, but there are groups of people around, and you can reach out and you can get some support, you know. But it is ultimately, you know, up to you to do something about that. You know? And the thing is, you know, the reason why I think we have such I mean, there was an experiment they did in the 1970s. The guy's name was Alexander Bruce. It's called Rat Park. So I don't know if you've heard of it. But so it's about rats they're all by themselves. Okay, and what he does is he habituates them. First, he gives them food and water, and then in another thing of water, he gives them one set of rats morphine, the other set of cocaine. Okay, and he habituates them to use it. And what they did is that they drank the laced narcotic water, until they died. Okay, so that's like, oh, that sounds really bad, but that's the addiction of certain drugs, yes. However, what he did after that, he said, okay, but I put them by themselves. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make like a park. So I don't know if you've seen them before. They have and there's rats everywhere, and they can do what they want. Did the same thing, food, water, and then the water laced with the narcotic. And what happened is they didn't do the drug. And he was like, why is that? Because they were connected. They were self-regulating each other. They were supporting each other. And the thing is, we can learn a lot from them. You know, the lack of connection is definitely making a massive contribution to mental health, addiction. It doesn't really matter. We're so disconnected from such a connected world. It makes no sense.
Just a quick break from today's episode. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: mental health at work. If you run a business, you've probably seen it. Stress, burnout, employees who aren't performing at their best because they're struggling. The problem? Most companies don't know how to address mental health in a way that actually helps their team. That's where Omnia Corporate Training comes in. We provide CPD certified mental health training that's practical, flexible, and designed to fit into any workplace. If you want to invest in your team's well-being, and let's be real, happy employees perform better, tap the link in the show notes or visit omniahealthgroup.com to learn more. Do you know, it's funny that when you were just saying that, as I said to you before we started filming, I've just come back from Cyprus, and I was in the village, so I wasn't near the city. It was very sort of simple in the way that life can be led. And we've just experienced a loss in the family. But that community and that connection was so strong that it felt so nice to have that connection with people, in terms of there was no one hiding away from themselves. We was all together. We all dealt with it as a unit, rather than everyone dealing with it individually. And it does make such a difference to have that connection, support of, you know, those, rather than just be stuck there, everyone on their own and isolated.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, I know there's a lot of challenges in the world. You know, we're going through financial stuff and political stuff. I'm not getting into that because it's all a bit crazy. But having said that, I do feel that the world is moving towards like more unity. You know, we understand that, you know, it's not just about me and you, but it is about us. And I think recovery groups in general, mutual aid groups, and that might be depression, anxiety, you know, addiction, it doesn't really matter. They definitely have something there, you know, that we as a society can learn from. You know, that you don't have to be by yourself. You know, and you can ask other people for help, and people can help you. You know, and I think it will go a long way to supporting humanity in the decades, you know, to come.
Yeah, because it's almost like, did maybe this whole being independent, being self-sufficient, has it gone too far? And it's maybe gone the full circle of people realising, actually, do you know what? Just because I'm part of a community or a group or asking for help, it doesn't mean I'm weak. It just means I'm leaning on someone because I need support.
Yeah, and what's really great is that if you look, you know, in the world, a lot of individuals with mental health and addiction who are extremely successful have opened up about their experience. You know, and when someone does that, then you give other people hope. And that's fundamental. Some people don't like the idea of hope. I believe in hope with action. Yeah, it's not about hoping. It's like, okay, we've got hope now. Maybe you're going to be inspired. What are you going to do?
So you've got to have the action plan in place to almost facilitate that hope and get it to where it needs to be.
Yes, otherwise you're just in hope.
And
then that doesn't
How long can that go for, right?
Yes. You need a number of things. You can't just have one thing.
Okay. So it sounds like for you, your, you know, connection, community, support groups in recovery are really important.
Yes.
What else do you think are key factors?
For individual in general?
For recovery, but for recovery with anything really, because I always say to my clients, recovery isn't just about recovery from addiction or any mental health difficulty. We have to recover from. So
Well, I think, I mean, there are a number of things. I don't think there's one thing. I do think that, you know, for yourself, you have to be honest about what goes on. And there's a sense of vulnerability that you will need. So, if you're honest, if you're really honest, not talking nonsense honest, but if you're honest with yourself, then you realize that you possibly can't do it by yourself. And then if you can't do it by yourself, where do you have to go and what do you have to do to reach out to get some help? And then if you get some help, do they have some structure to help you? That's important. You know, things like self-regulation, learning to trust yourself and learning to trust others. And I'm not saying, you know, earlier you said about, you know, the group, I don't trust anyone. And that's fine. So we're not asking you to do that. We're just asking you to be honest and see what goes on. Because some people out in the world, you shouldn't trust. You shouldn't trust them. But what you do over a period of time, you start trusting someone, within your community, whatever that is, it might be whatever it is, and then you learn, okay, these are the, you know, characteristics of someone I can trust. And then sometimes along the way, someone's going to break your trust. You know, if you have family, you have kids, you have parents, you know, someone's going to say something you don't like, but then you know, you work through a process for yourself, and you process it, and you learn something, and you move forward. You know, and also the most important thing is don't do it by yourself. You know, that just doesn't work.
Yeah. So again, that honesty piece is so important. And as you said, it's not airy-fairy honest. It's
radical.
Yeah. Let's get really deep in there. Yeah.
And what you find is that connection, because that's it. It's when someone is honest with another person. This was what that Gus was telling me. You connect with someone else. And not just mental. There's something else that happens with individuals. And when you connect with someone, then it's like, oh, I'm not alone. And that can really support you moving forward, whatever that is.
Yeah. So that feeling of connection, that feeling of knowing you're not alone, almost has a strength attached to it, doesn't it? Where you can then start to put that one foot in front of the other. Yeah,
it starts with somewhere though. So you gotta be honest. You know, and you know whatever's happened to you, you know, I always feel like you can get through whatever that is. It's going to be hard. It might be painful. Yeah. But I don't believe there's anything that's happened to people that they can't
overcome.
Well, overcome. You know, I mean, there's a guy called Viktor Frankl who wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's a very good book. I based my thesis on it, Finding Meaning in Life. Yeah. And, you know, I think Auschwitz and Dachau, and they killed like nearly everyone he knew. And from that very difficult experience, you know, he found meaning in his suffering. And from that, you know, he wrote a book. He came up with something called logotherapy, which is meaning in therapy, you know, from your life. And he's influenced a whole lot of people, do you know what I mean, in a really positive way, from something that was very traumatic and something I don't even know what that's like. But he saw some good in it, you know, and he changed it for himself and others.
So again, even though he went through that difficulty, it was his perspective and his meaning that helped him find the courage to not just help himself, but to help
others.
I mean, how many millions of copies of that book have been sold?
Who knows? I mean, and there's so many people who use that, you know, support other people.
Yeah.
You know? And in the book, he talks about he said that the SS soldiers, they told him, they controlled everything. So they told you when to eat, when to sleep, when to work. And they used to beat them all the time. But he said, you know, even when he was getting beaten, he had a right to choose about what was going on. So he could be having, you know, a virgin pina colada on the beach. You know, he had that right. It was his choice. And that's what he did. And that's very committed, because I don't know if I'd do that.
Yeah. As you were saying, I forgot that must take some mental strength to be able to go there.
A lot of resilience.
Yeah.
You know, and finding purpose in your suffering.
So how is the work you do now at Omnia Neurodiscovery different to work that you've done previously?
So in organizations I've worked previously, they normally have a theme of something that's going on. You know? So we'd have either people, you know, in addiction, for instance, or mental health or something like that, you know. However, with Omnia, we have more of it's everywhere I've worked is person-centered. Yes, it is, yeah. However, we'll have people in very much different walks of life. Some people are there to lose some weight. Yeah. Some individuals have some mental health stuff. Some people have grief. You know, some people have addictions, gambling. It doesn't, you know, it's really a kaleidoscope, you know. And what I've known from the past, you know, working with individuals and very much is reinstated now, is that people are people. You know, and you might be, you know, a blonde-haired lady like yourself, or a man like myself, or a 20-year-old boy or girl, it doesn't really matter, or a bit older, 70-year-old, it doesn't really matter, that's had a different experience, but there's something in the shared vulnerability that really supports other people, you know? And also I think what really gets in the way with a lot of people is what I said a bit earlier, is that they think that, like, I'm the only one. It's only me. That's the way it is, you know? And my problems are different to yours. And they are different, but you will struggle, you know? And it's through the struggle that it makes people part of a community, you know? And also what I also find as well is the online is fantastic. It gives you a lot of flexibility. We have, clients in America, in Minnesota, in Portugal, in the UK. We have individuals who travel quite a bit. So they'll be in one place, then they'll be in New York, and then there'll be someone else. And the flexibility is fantastic, because it doesn't matter really where you are in the world. If you can get a connection, and you don't even need a computer anymore, just your phone. Yeah, you can be with us. So that I find it's wonderful.
No.
Yeah, support anyone anywhere in the world.
So not only are you able to cover sort of worldwide, obviously time permitting.
Yes.
That kaleidoscope of presenting issues, as you put it, is quite unusual because, as you say, normally people are banded together with what they're experiencing.
Yes.
But that kaleidoscope is the common theme, is that there's a struggle for those individuals. Being vulnerable in sharing those struggles brings that connection and provides that support for each other and some identification at the same time, which is the power of group, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. And then with I have certain principles that I work with. And you spoke about hope, and I can speak about hope a little bit later as well. But also the action. So the coaching is very good. Because we sit there and we can know things, but knowing is not good enough, in my experience. You can sit there and I know how to build a house. Good for you. And how you can do it. I'm not going to do it though, but I know how to do it. And I remember I worked with a client in the methadone clinic, been around for a while, and we were just looking to see how we can support him and move forward. And we said, like, what's your goal? He said, I want to be abstinent. I said, that's good. He was on a script. That's fantastic. And then I was like, okay, but what's going on for you, and how are we going to get there? And he was like, no, Lee, I'm just going to do it. I was like, yeah, that's great, but how? We need a plan. Yeah, we're going to have to see what's going on for you, because you've said that many times before and it doesn't work. Yeah. So what's the plan moving forward? So action is fundamental to what we do.
Nice. Just a quick break from today's episode. Have you ever felt like the kind of support you need just doesn't exist? Maybe you need help outside of normal hours. Maybe you don't even know where to start. That's why Omnia Neurodiscovery exists. We offer specialised, flexible mental health support, including intensive evening and weekend packages for people who need something different. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, don't wait. Tap the link in the show notes or visit omniahealthgroup.com to find out how we can help. So sort of working together with the clients to help them build that plan so that they can cling on to that hope that they've got, but have a process in place to action and make that change.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's all collaborative. You know what I mean? Some individuals, they're only able to do one or two things. And that's fine. That's where you are.
And everyone's journey is different, right? Because you might come up with a plan of action with one client and they may be able to complete that plan, step by step in order, and they'll get there. Other clients may do step 1, 2, and 3, and then before they realise it, they're back at step 1 again, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they might go back to step 3. But it's about understanding that it's their process. Yes. Why have they gone back to that step? What's happened in that they need to unpick so that they can move forward?
Yeah, I think if you've had any challenges, and you could have had divorce, that's really difficult, or loss, or grief, job, whatever it is. It's an opportunity, in my experience, is to reflect on what's going on for me. Why am I here? What have I been doing? Because we're all apart. Sometimes things are unfair. Yeah, I get that. Whatever that might be. Yeah, but you can sit in the unfairness all day. Yeah, life isn't fair. Yeah, look around the world. That's the way it is. And you can sit there all day long. It's not going to get you anywhere. But if you can understand what's going on for you, and then have some sort of plan, and it doesn't have to be massively stringent. It doesn't be militant, but we have a plan. you know, and we have some flexibility within that, and then you might even change your goal. You know, I don't know, you know, because I don't know.
Yeah, we've got to see how it
We
goes,
have to see how
right?
it goes. Yes.
What would you say to someone listening who feels they've tried everything or that nothing has worked for them before?
They've tried everything and nothing has worked. So try harder. No, I've been never flippant. Yes, yeah. No, so I work on 4 main, I suppose, values or principles with my clients in general. Yeah. So it's honesty, hope, compassion, and action. Okay, and be honest. I was speaking about it earlier. Be radically honest. Okay, what is going on? Okay, are people telling me that, you know, this is going on in my behavior, they're not happy about this, am I using a substance, am I depressed? You know, be honest, you know. Then have some compassion for yourself. It's not easy. This is not an easy thing. It's doable, but it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy in my experience, because if things are too easy, you throw them away. But when you have to work for it, you hold on to it. You know? And that's mental health, addiction recovery, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, you know. So the honesty, compassion, there is hope. You might think that like there's no hope for you. You know, there's a lot of stigma when it comes to mental health, addiction, getting divorced, there's stigma. Do you know what I mean? So let's not pretend there's not, yeah. But that stigma is not a life sentence. It's not like that's who you are. That's a behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an outcome. But if the outcome is, you know, using a narcotic, yeah, you don't have to have shame in that. That's an outcome. You know, let's reframe it. What are we going to do over here to get a better outcome over there? So there is hope. Yeah, there is hope. You might think there's no hope. There's people everyone thinks they're the bigger fish, the biggest fish in the world. No, you're not. So I just tell you now, you're not. You might have had a lot of horrible things happen or difficult, yeah, and you use substances or your mental health has been poor, whatever it is. But there is hope that you can shift. I don't know what that looks like, but I do believe that. You know, there's no one's a hopeless case.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you can't do it by yourself. People don't like that. I can do it by myself. It's my problem. I'll sort it out. No, you can't. Yeah, it goes back to the honesty. Yeah, radically honest. You know. So if that is going on, yeah, reach out, do something. You have to do. You know, if you can do something, because you've done the same thing before and you got the same result. So let's look at that result. We want to change the result. What are we going to do? Do something different. See what happens. Have faith that it'll be okay, but not if you don't do anything. You have to do something. So please, don't give up hope. Get out there, do something, get some support, and in a year's time, you can have a whole different life. A whole different life.
Nice. Before we close, is there one final message you'd like to leave with our listeners?
One final message. I suppose I'll use myself and what I do. You know, I was in a very dark place. I was very depressed. I was very resentful. I was angry. I hated the world. I hated everyone. Yeah. And in that abyss of stuff, whatever that is, you know, someone gave me hope. And from that hope, I made a decision and I asked for help. And that decision changed the whole of my life. You know, and now, you know, I've worked all over the world, you know, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, you know, Canada, America. I've done a lot of different things that I would never, ever had the opportunity to do, you know, if I'd stayed where I was, you know. And sometimes I'll speak to some of my friends who I used to, you know, party with back in the day. And nothing against them, but they're still doing some of the same things. And I'm like, okay, well, it's 20 odd years. Do something different now. Nothing against them, they're great guys. You know what I mean? And if that's what you choose, that's up to you, that's fine, you know. But you can have a whole different life in a year, in a month. Things can change, but please do something, act. There's a whole world out there. You don't have to be stuck in your mental health or in your divorce or your gambling, or you don't have to be stuck there. You can do something, you know, and maybe make a contribution to someone else. Who knows? You know? But isn't that the beauty of it all?
Exactly, yeah. So to our audience, thank you for joining us on the Silent Epidemic. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, share and subscribe. Join us next time as we continue exploring the conversations and discoveries shaping mental health, recovery and resilience. And thank you again.
Thank you very much, Hattie. Nice to be here.